statistical, mathematical fact
never has been down.
has broken every single record. There is no asset that has come close.
It's the only thing in the industry that was not touched, that was not hacked, and it never fails doing what it promised in 2009. It's never
What's
failed.
the best performing asset the world has ever seen? And you'll find out that it's Bitcoin.
Welcome, Bitcoiners. Welcome once again to another Oliver Velez Spaces. My name is Oliver Velez, of course, and I am your 13%er Bitcoiner. That's right. I am your 13%er Bitcoiner. I actually get that question more than any other question, believe it or not. Oliver, what does the 13%er Bitcoiner mean in your profile? And I've answered that a plethora of times. And this sort of became a movement, I guess. I want to say maybe 8-9 months ago or so. I think it was ignited by a comment or a thread that was put out by Jason Lopp, whom I truly respect in a huge way. He's one of the founders of CASA, the collaborative custody, multi-sig custody company, CASA. And when CASA decided to also support Ethereum, the pure Bitcoiners had a problem with that. And he came under a bit of pressure. And actually, I believe he wrote a piece of some sort on his Twitter page revealing that their company's research revealed that only 13% of all Bitcoiners are what some would refer to as Bitcoin maximalists or Bitcoin maxis or pure Bitcoiners, and own or have no interest in anything else but Bitcoin. And that statement there kicked off this 13%er movement amongst many of the the purist, the Bitcoiners. And so that's where it comes from. And I jumped on the bandwagon because I thought it was an opportunity to tag myself right up front for anyone who visits my page or wants to know what I'm about. I want every single individual to understand right off the bat, before you even click on anything, read on anything, you are dealing with someone who is a pure Bitcoiner, who does not believe that there is anything else worth looking at, does not buy into the notion that there are other things that offer utilities outside of and beyond the capability of Bitcoin. I just don't buy it. And I want all of you to know that right up front. So I thought it was a great way to tag myself that way. So anyway, that's where it comes from, for those of you who might not have heard my explanations before. I'm quite happy that we got an extra little dip here, an opportunity to sell our fiat units for more Bitcoin today. I did that. Perhaps maybe some of you saw that. And actually, I did more, which I didn't show you, but guys, and I'm not even sure how much of these things I should be sharing, but I literally purchase Bitcoin every 500 points down as a specific strategy. And I do that outside of anything else. So outside of any spontaneous smash buys, I have a variety of different buy approaches that I share with my Bitcoiners, with my traders. And we put these strategies together and we utilize them together. So one strategy is to buy every $500 down, but in a laddered way. So we do it in a triangular way. So if you were to think about a triangular buy ladder, right? Or buy pyramid. You choose what resonates with you. If you were to put the point of the pyramid at $27,000, so if you were to buy at 27, that would be your smallest buy. And then $500 down that pyramid, it's actually wider than the point, right? And so the wider you would buy a little bit more than the dollar amount you bought at 27,000. So at 26.5, you'd buy a little bit more than 27. And then 500 points down from 26.5 is 26,000. And you'd buy a little bit more at 26,000 than you bought at 26.5, and so forth and so on, all the way down. Now, some of my traders can't do that. They might not be able to do every 500. So then those traders would do every 1,000. So they would do a $1,000 buy ladder down. And some people decide to do, some of my traders actually decide to do a $2,000 buy ladder in the 20,000s. So the way their buy ladder might go is it's 28, then the next buy is 26, then the next buy is 24, but they're doubling or close to doubling their buy amounts. So if they were to keep numbers simple, if they were to buy $100, and I'm keeping the numbers simple, right? If they were to buy $100 at 28,000, then $2,000 down at 26,000, they would buy $200. And then at 24,000, they would buy $400 and so forth and so on. And they create their buy ladder that way. Now, the traders that do that, right, that accumulate that way, they adjust every 10,000. So in the 20,000 range, they're using the first digit, right? 2,000. So if we were to drop below 2,000, they would start using 1.5 thousand. All right. And then if we were to drop below 10,000, they would start using every $1,000 down. And if they were to drop below if Bitcoin were to ever drop below 1,000, they would start using every $500 down. If Bitcoin went to 30,000, they would start using every $3,000 down. If Bitcoin went to $40,000 range, they would start using every $4,000 down. And so that's just one approach. And we have sort of like 5 approaches for accumulating Bitcoin going on simultaneously. So if you've got a DCA going on with the every $500 down going on with, a variety of others that it would be unfair for me to share them with you because they're not proprietary, but I give my trader's going to get angry with me. But anyway, it was a very nice day because a variety of things triggered for us, and it was a nice buy day to pick up some relatively inexpensive sats here today. So happy and pumped about that, guys. Happy and pumped about that. All right, guys, listen, I don't want to keep you too long today, but something started gnawing at me from my last talk when I briefly touched upon the notion that Bitcoin is your country. And some people DM'd me regarding the comment because I said it kind of rather in passing. And then it dawned on me from these comments that perhaps this is something that I should actually focus on a bit, because while my traders and the people that I spend the majority of my time with connected to Bitcoin, we all know this. It's very prevalent in our nomenclature to refer to and understand Bitcoin as our country. And I realized that I did not do that with my following here. And so it struck a lot of people as being quite strange that I would call Bitcoin a country. And so this is my opportunity to add a little bit of nuance to that, which I think might prove to be somewhat valuable. Now, very quickly, I have to remind you, I don't pass the mic to anyone. Most of you who've been here before, you know this. I am not a mic passer. All right. I'm not into basically waiting for you to finally get your mic together, fumbling with your mic, banging it against the floor, hearing your dog in the background, you talking to me while you're riding your tractor in your backyard, fielding or doing whatever you do. I just think it's far more productive if I do kind of like a monologue and you respond to that monologue. We keep it very tight in terms of a specific topic. Your questions are very tight in terms of that topic. And also, I will be using some parts and clips from these talks that we have in other formats on other platforms as well. So me producing these monologues here on certain topics does lend itself very well to my future plans with these, my team's future plans. All right, guys, so there it is. But please feel free to ask anything your heart desires, guys. I have been in the public space for 3 decades, over 3 decades. I have been in the financial markets for over 40 years. I have spoken to people, tens of thousands, if not millions of people over the last 30 decades. Guys, you can ask me anything you want. I'm a big boy. I don't get offended very easily. And so you go at it. You go at it. You can ask me anything you like. Okay. Bitcoin is your country. And from this day forward, I want each and every one of you who is listening to me now, whether you're listening to me live, or whether you're listening to me on a recording, in a recorded fashion, I want you from this day forward to honor the fact that Bitcoin is your country. If you own Bitcoin, if you've adopted Bitcoin in any way, you have become a citizen of Bitcoin. And I want you to respect that fact. I want you to wave that Bitcoin flag with pride. And I want you to understand that you belong or are a citizen of the best country in existence today. Now, I know that's a bold statement, so let me explain. Most of us, if not all of us, we have been living through this very big movement. Most of us have been living through this movement that has been going on for many decades, actually, but we've been living through this movement quite unconsciously. But this movement of the entire world being dematerialized. Most have not paused to reflect on this fact. Most have not sat down to ponder the implications of a physical analog world being reduced or being transformed into pure digital, a new reality being transported to a new reality. I know most have not paused, most have not thought about, most have not meditated on this, but it is happening despite your lack of attention on it. We have watched things in our lives move from one realm of existence, the analog realm, the physical realm where you can touch it, feel it, taste it, smell it, see it. We've seen these things disappear from that realm and actually take on a brand new existence in a brand new, different realm called the digital realm, the digital world, the world in which we can't physically see, touch, feel, taste, smell. And all of our lives, we've been living through this movement. We have watched our physical photos disappear on us. We've watched albums under the coffee table disappear. Today, I was mentioning in my last talk, my mother had 200 photos of me under the coffee table as a baby. She would bore the freaking neighbors every time they came over for coffee, as if they hadn't already seen the 200 pictures 17 times before. But she would pull out those albums and show the same 200 pictures of me as a baby every single time my neighbors once a year came over for some special occasion. And today, I will tell you that my mother probably has 10,000 digital photos on our iPhone today. I have 55,000 photos. That doesn't even count videos. I have 55,000 plus photos on one phone, and I keep 4 phones. That's right, 4. I travel a lot. I live on multiple different continents, and I have a phone for every continent. And so I will tell you this. Photos today, my photos, I haven't touched them. I haven't felt them. I really don't see them. They're basically just X's and O's. They're digits, right? But they are no longer part of the physical world. Our photos today aren't part of the physical analog world. Our music disappeared. Do you realize that the only way several decades ago, the only way to experience music in the early 1900s was to actually go to hear your music person or band actually sing or play? Do you realize that in the 1800s, the only way to hear music was to either go to an opera or go to a symphony? That you had to actually physically be there with the player, with the singer, with the performer? And so we went from having to physically be in the same place, physically, with the performer of our music, to that music starting to move to the digital world. First, it moved from that state to being put on plastic vinyl. And so now, with the music having transformed for I have to go see my singer, to now, wait a minute, I don't have to go see my singer. I just have to go buy this piece of plastic. And so that move made music more accessible to more people. How many people in the world could actually physically go see this opera singer sing? But now the opera singer's singing is on plastic. That plastic can get to more people than the number that can actually go visit that singer, that opera singer. And so the plastic, the vinyl, expanded music to the world, to more of the world. Then we went from vinyl to 8-track tapes. Anybody remember those? Am I dating myself here? I'm freaking old, I know. I remember I used to order tons of 8-track tapes. They were thick as hell. I used to order them from Columbia House. Anybody remember that? I know I'm doxing my age now. You'd get like 10 of those for a penny. And then you get a bill like my grandmother used to get my grandmother got a bill for like $200 one time because I kept ordering 8-track tapes of my favorite artists back in the 1970s. And I said, Grandma, Columbia House said it was only 8 cents. It was a scam. But anyway, I digress. 8-track tapes got to more people. Then cassette tapes got to more people. Then CDs got to more people. And guess what? Music can't even be touched today. So you used to be able to touch the vinyl record, used to be able to touch the 8-track, used to be able to touch the cassette tape, used to be able to touch, feel, and see the CD. Now you can't. When's the last time you've touched an album? When's the last time you've seen an album? You can't touch music today. You can't feel it. It's everywhere at the same time. And today, because music has left the analog world and has transported itself to a brand new world, a brand new realm of existence called the digital realm. Because of that move, it is now more accessible than it ever has been. Music is bigger and music is more accessible. You see, you can't move from the analog physical world and go to the digital realm without instantaneously becoming bigger, broader, more accessible, and more valuable. It's impossible. I'll give you another example. I used to use phones with cords on them. All right. I know I'm old like that. All right. Phones with cords on them. I remember the phone on my mother's kitchen wall. It had the long cord so that you can actually walk around the whole kitchen, and the cord used to get all twisted up. It was the pain in the ass undoing that cord. That phone today, I looked it up before I went on live with you. It's like $18 on Amazon. The phone with the cord on it that you hang on the kitchen wall. It's $18. But the digital one, the iPhone 15, is like the top one is like 1,500 bucks. I have an Android. What the heck is this called again? The Fold 5 or whatever it is called. I've got the Android phone. That's $2,000. Wait a minute. $18 analog, now $2,000 digital. More powerful, more accessible, believe it or not, and exponentially more valuable. You can't move to the digital realm and not become exponentially more valuable. You can't move to the digital realm and not become more accessible. You can't be moved to the digital world and not become more ubiquitous. We've seen almost everything in our life marching to this new realm. I remember watching old movies with the old black and white movies where the character in the movie would pick up the phone and says, yes, wouldn't even dial. Like, how is that? They pick up the phone and not even dial. Like the operator would be right there, as if the operator's waiting for them to pick up the phone, right? So they pick up the phone and say, someone on the other side was, may I help you, sir? Yes, I'd like to reach Dr. Weber and Atlanta, Georgia, please. Time and charges. And the operator on the other side, in her cute little white shirt and her tight little skirt, amongst a lot of women that were dressed the same, you'd see the movie switch to them pulling cords out of a wall and sticking them in different holes in the wall. You're connected, sir. Dr. Weber's on the line, sir. Do we have any freaking long distance operator switchers today? No, they're all digital. Your mail. I remember, you don't even understand this. You don't even understand this. I have licked more envelopes in that disgusting glue on the back of envelopes and stamps. I've licked more of those envelopes and more stamps than probably all of you and all of your ancestry combined. Because my grandmother had a business where I had to work in the business licking envelopes and putting stamps on them to mail out her stuff. And I will tell you, it was disgusting. And I used to have to take bags and bags to the post office down the street. Physical mail. The amount of mail at the height of the U.S. Postal Service's realm, all right? The height of mailing a physical letter, maybe 100 million items. How many digital pieces of mail go out per second? You see, the physical form of mailing a letter has limits. The digital form doesn't. And so billions upon billions upon billions, not hundreds of thousands, not millions, billions upon billions. Digital mail is in the trillions. You can't move from the analog world to the digital world and not become more available, more accessible, bigger, and more valuable. I remember one of the best one of the best investments I made in my life, it wasn't the actual best, but one of the best investments I made in my life was to pile into Amazon in 2003. Now, we had just experienced the dot-com bubble, the two-step down crash of the dot-com bubble. The first crash of the dot-com bubble happened in the year 2000. What a lot of people don't understand is that tops typically happen in the form of double tops. So the initial crack of the dot-com bubble happened in 2000. There was a rally that actually produced a brief new high. That's called a peekaboo rally, right? To a new high, which led to the real crash, which happened in 2021. After the crash of 2021, all right, the market just kind of went dead right into 2023, 2021. I'm sorry. The year 2000 was the initial top. 2001 was that second top, and the 2001 crash was really the major impact of the dot-com crash, that 2001 crash. After 2001, things sort of settled down and started to look like they were trying to bottom out. I decided that it was time to put almost everything I had into Amazon. It was the moment to strike. It was the time. And I remember, guys, I would bore people to death the same way I bore you to death talking about Bitcoin today. You couldn't, I didn't talk about anything else. You couldn't make me talk about anything else. And yes, I was toxic about Amazon and you getting into Amazon the same way I'm toxic about you getting into Bitcoin today. I saw it. I saw it as clear as day. And I'll tell you how I saw it, right? Because I had recently become an author. My first book was published in the year 2000. So I actually went to Barnes and Noble because I would typically go to Barnes and Noble, right, to sign the copies so that when a person bought my book, they would get a surprise when they opened it up and say, oh my God, the author was here. He signs my book. And I would do that all the time in New York City, right? And so this one time I went to the bookstore and my book wasn't on the shelf. And I went to the manager. I said, listen, I need to know why my book is not on the shelf here. This is a best-selling book. It's not on the shelf here. Why is it? And he says, well, sir, is it because it's sold out? And this is, sir, no, our purchasing manager decided that for the next several months that we were going to sacrifice this book being on the shelf because of limited book space. And I says, but it's a bestseller. And he says, yes, but it's been a bestseller, sir, for a while now, and we have to make room for the new bestsellers. And I'm like, you got to be freaking kidding me. I am not honored that my book is actually a bestseller longer than these new bestsellers, but you have to move my book off the shelf to make space for their book, and they're a new bestseller? Like, that doesn't even make sense to me. Yes, sir, I'm sorry. That's the way it goes. And right there, I knew Amazon sitting, I swear to my almighty God, that moment, standing in front of that manager in Barnes and Noble, I knew you were gone. Amazon's taking you out. And here is what hit me. You see, Barnes and Noble, the big bookstore, the bookstore that dominated everything in the past, they were even publicly traded. But Barnes and Noble had analog shelves. Listen to me. I'm going to repeat this. Barnes and Noble had physical shelves. Physical shelves are limited. So that's why you need a purchasing manager to decide which books are going to go on going to make it on our limited space shelves. We don't have an unlimited number of shelf space. So we have to decide. And then it hit me. Amazon doesn't have to decide shit. OMG. While you're sitting there deciding, turning away good books, turning away business, turning away exposure for your authors, that actually are responsible for your business, Amazon doesn't have to turn anybody away because their shelves are not physical. Their shelves are not analog. They can take every single book in the world. They don't have to turn an author away. They don't even care if the author's good or not. It's just available for anyone on planet Earth if they want it. And OMG, I got it. Digital shelf space. And then another layer of shock hit me at that moment. Well, wait a minute. They're doing this with books right now. But there's shelf space for everything in the world that's sold retail. There's space for clothes. There's space for food in a supermarket. I'm like, oh my God, Amazon's going after the freaking world with digital shelf space. And I am telling you, from that day onward, I bought Amazon and bought Amazon and bought Amazon and bought. I sold almost, I didn't sell everything. I didn't sell Apple. I didn't sell Microsoft. I didn't sell McDonald's. I didn't sell Eli Lilly. Those are the ones I didn't sell, but I sold every single thing else that I owned from a long-term perspective. And I just kept piling into Amazon, piling in. If Amazon dropped, it was like I was happy as a pig in mud. Do you understand? I saw the future. I saw what this thing was going to do. And it became one of my biggest wealth plays of all. Now, ironically, I sold to Amazon for Bitcoin. In 2021, all of it. But I held it from 2003 to 2021. And now Bitcoin has my Amazon. My point in telling you that story, I say all of that to say this: the digital conquers the analog. There is no way that something can move from the analog world and go to the digital world and not become bigger, not become more accessible to more people on earth, and not become more valuable. Now, if that is true, and it is true, I know it to be true, right? Let's take the fact that gold is the most valuable asset on planet Earth. You understand? It is $13.5 trillion as an estimate. And guys, it's an estimate because no one on this earth can tell you how much gold exists. I've got gold in my house. I've got some gold jewelry. I've got some gold pieces from my old gold bug days. I've got a few bars laying around at different homes and stuff like that. No one's come knocking on my door to get the number. Nobody knows how much gold exists in the world. Yet when it comes to Bitcoin, every single Satoshi is accounted for. I can show you where every single Satoshi is. You can show me where every single Satoshi is. Every person in the world can see where every single Satoshi is, but no one knows where every single ounce of gold is. That's bullshit. We don't even know if it's really 13.5 trillion, but let's assume that they're not lying to us. But anyway, let's assume that they're not lying to us. So gold is the most valuable asset on Earth. Apple's the second most valuable asset on Earth. Gold is physical. You can touch it, you can feel it, you can see it, you can smell it. Because of its physicality, it is limited. It can't be accessible to the entire world. It can't be transported easily, like the songs that I have in Spotify. They follow me all over the world, but my goal can't follow me all over the world. Because it's physical, it can't be divided very well. Because it's physical, it can be stolen from me. Dude, you can't steal my favorite song from me in my head. I sing it in the shower, man. Good luck trying to steal that. I sing every single word of my favorite song in the shower. How can you steal that from me? That's like Bitcoin. How can you steal 12 words from me? My Bitcoin's 12 words. Bitcoin is the digital form of gold. Now, it's not only that. I believe that just saying Bitcoin is digital gold is a slap in the face to gold, but it's a good starting point for some of the bozos out there that can't seem to get the fact that, oh, wait a minute, because it's not physical, though. I can't touch it and feel it. Dude, you're in the dark ages. You can't touch and feel most of the things in your life anymore. You haven't stopped to notice. Your music's disappeared. Your pictures have disappeared. Your freaking money has pretty much disappeared. Your long distance operators have disappeared. Your mail has disappeared on you. Dude, everything's disappearing. And because it's not physical, you can't see any value in it. Dude, wake up. Wake up. Come back to this planet, please. It's going to be more valuable because it's not physical. It's going to be more divisible because it's not physical. It's going to be unconfiscatable because it's not physical. It's going to be more ubiquitous in the world because it's not physical. It's going to be more accessible to everyone in the world because it's not physical. And it's going to be more valuable because it's not physical. Now, let's go back, if you will, to the scenario of my mother's phone with a cord, the analog phone with a cord on her kitchen wall. That's $18 today. The phone that I have that I'm actually using for this live spaces right now cost me $2,000. Now that's an exponential jump in value, right? The digital can never be equal or lower than the analog thing that it has replaced. So an iPhone can't ever be equal to an analog phone or less than an analog phone. It can't be. It always must be exponentially more valuable than the analog or physical thing that it has replaced in the digital realm. All right? Netflix is exponentially more valuable because it deals in digital theater, digital movies. It is going to always be exponentially more valuable than a Blockbuster that deals in physical movies. All right. Spotify is going to be always a more valuable company than Motown because Spotify deals with digital music and Motown doesn't. Well, you know what I'm saying. So the digital version can't ever be equal or less or even close in value. So if Bitcoin is the digital version of physical gold, and gold's value today is 13.5 trillion, then where is Bitcoin going, the digital version of it? Well, where did the iPhone go in comparison to the value of the analog phone? Where did digital email go in comparison to the physical letters being mailed out? It's not only going to $13 trillion as an asset, it's going to exponentially outstrip 13 trillion. It's what every digital form of an analog thing does. It exponentially outstrips the physical version of itself. It doesn't just go to be equal to it. The iPhone didn't go to be equal to the analog phone, did it? No. It exponentially outstripped the analog phone. Bitcoin is going to exponentially outstrip its physical version of itself. Physical gold. Gold today is 13 trillion. So what's exponentially more than 13 trillion? 100? trillion? 500 trillion? That number doesn't matter. The concept that I want you to understand is that never in the history of humankind has or can the digital version of something be less than the physical version. It is always more accessible, and more valuable, exponentially so, than the physical version that it replaces. And that's just one use case for Bitcoin. The same way I saw that Amazon was dematerializing retail shelf space, I see today that Bitcoin is dematerializing gold. But wait, it's dematerializing fiat currencies. But wait, it's dematerializing equities. But wait, it's dematerializing real estate. But wait, it's dematerializing bonds. Oh, but wait, it's dematerializing all forms of value. Art, it's dematerializing. Now, I am not saying that Bitcoin is making all of those go to zero. I am just saying that it is reducing the premium that these other things used to enjoy because there was no other alternative. Bitcoin today is $500 billion in value, more or less. It came from somewhere, guys. Where do you think it came from? It didn't just spring up out of thin air. It came from some portion of the equity world. It came from some portion of the real estate world. It came from some portion of the art world, some portion of fiat currency world, some portion of real estate world. The money's there instead of being there like before. And this will continue. So what's my point in saying this right now? My point is that if I can just keep you in one narrative, one use case, dematerializing gold, like the iPhone dematerialized analog phones, if I can just keep you there, then I can convince you that Bitcoin should surpass $13 trillion by a long shot. You see, the iPhone didn't just rise to the level of analog phones. It went much higher. Bitcoin is not going to just reach the level of its analog version at 13 trillion. It's going much higher. Now, if I can convince you with that argument that that is the case, imagine when I take you to the point, well, that's just one. That's just gold. It's going to do this with everything. And then the numbers get so stupefying that your brain just wants to freaking explode. This is powerful. This is powerful, guys. Am I ranting too much? You guys let me know. Am I ranting too much? Is that what I'm doing? I can do that. I know. I don't even know where your questions are. Let me see where your questions are. I thought I'd be able to see this on my... You guys don't ask questions, though. That's the problem. Nobody asks questions here. Let me see. All right. No questions. Okay, that's all right. That's all right. How many people do I have here? Because I usually get 5. I've been getting a little bit more than 5. How many people here? I got like 10. I love it. Thank you, guys. I appreciate all the people that show up live. I appreciate all of you, though. Live, listen to the recording, All 15 of you. Love you to death. Love you to death, all 15 of you. All right, but so that's sort of like, guys, my little uh, um my little monologue. But is there a chart? No, that's just me bantering. I do want to do that though, because I just haven't the platform, to be honest with you, is quite cumbersome for me. I'm old, guys. I told you about this. But I think I will do this though for you. Uh I would like to post this before I go into my next thing. And I am going to have to be somewhat short with this, and we can come back to this theme that Bitcoin is your country. But let me post this for you if I may. All right, I'm going to post this now for you. And I just want you to take a look at this. I'm sure many of you have seen this before. I'm sure you have. But and I did post this. But I've just posted an image in our live space. It's coming now. And I'm actually reposting this. Okay. And I this is actually somewhat borrowed from Ray Dalio. And it's just Bitcoin's been added to this image at the end. And what this is basically showing you is that the average lifespan of a world reserve currency or a dominant empire is usually about 200 to 250 years. And this is throughout history, guys, for a very long time. But it's been shrinking throughout the ages. So there were times when empires lasted for thousands of years. Then we went to an era where they lasted just about 1,000 years. And then we went to an era where they lasted about 300 to 500 years. And then there was a period where most of them lasted that long. And now we're at the period where they last about 200 to maybe 250 years. And so the lifespan of these massive controlling entities, they're getting shorter and shorter. But this is the case for everything for the most part. The average lifespan, what many people don't realize or know, is that the average lifespan of a publicly traded company is actually 13 years. The average lifespan of a behemoth, the average lifespan of a dominant company, a company that dominates its industry, dominates its space, and is number one. Think about this. The average lifespan of an Amazon is 65 years, 63 to 65 years. That's being dominant in your industry, being number one, where no one touches you. You've got 65 years, 63 to 65 years. If you are not that, you've got 13 years on average. That's an average. The vast majority of businesses are out of business, or many businesses are out of business inside of 5 years. So the average I'm talking about is 13 years. You don't believe me? Look it up. All right. But I've been in this space for 40 years. So just relax and trust me a little bit. When I talk a little bit in that arena, you can relax and trust me, but you can always look it up if you like. All right. So everything shrinks over time. Right. And so does empires. So do world reserve. So do the lifespans of world reserve currencies. And so what this image is showing is that America in particular has already peaked. It is already in the decline portion of its empire range. Okay. Now, what this image is also showing you is that there is something else that's been rising, and that is Bitcoin. Now, why would this image have Bitcoin there? When we're talking about Great Britain, we're talking about the Dutch, and before the Dutch, we're talking about the Spanish and the French. But why is Bitcoin there? Bitcoin's not a country. I beg to differ. I believe this image correctly depicts the fact that we're moving to an era where countries are no longer analog. That's my whole purpose for giving you that long, some of you might say, boring monologue. That long monologue that laid the foundation for we're moving to a digital world with everything, including citizenship. This idea that where you're born is where you're locked in forever is stupid and it's primitive. The fact that I should be limited to a piece of dirt is stupid and it's primitive, and it's breaking down and it's disappearing. Our grandkids are going to be laughing at us and say, you were a prisoner to this piece of dirt? No, countries are quickly disappearing. Oh, yes, they still exist in terms of name and things of that nature, but they're disappearing because the first realm or the first taste of digital countries is Facebook, Meta, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, right? X. They're all countries. Many of these digital countries have more citizens, users, have more citizens than all of the countries in the world. Facebook has more citizens than any other country in the world. Meta. It knows more about its citizens. Meta knows more about its citizens than any country knows about their citizens. It knows when they're going to sleep. It knows when they wake up. It knows when their interests change. It knows what they like, what they dislike. It knows their friends. It knows who they conversate the most with. It knows whether they're kinky. It knows whether they like boys or girls. It knows what kind of clothes they wear. It knows the places they go. It knows their fantasies. If you're telling me that Meta is not a country, you're not getting my message here. Meta is a country. And Meta has citizens. And it tried to even have its own money. And those who realize, they put a stop on that. We got our first taste of countries beyond borders. We've got our first taste that countries are no longer analog. They're digital. They're everywhere at the same time. They're not limited to a piece of dirt. And Bitcoin is the next rendition of that as a country. Now, I know some of you are saying, well, Oliver, how can you still say that? Well, let me go over some facts. And perhaps we're going to have to break this into two parts because I do want to do more of a deep dive on this. But let me give you some things to think about because I don't want to keep you too long. All right. But let me give you some things to think about here. And we will have a step two. Okay. A country has no real physical reality. It is an abstract idea under which a group of people with similar values, guys, beliefs and morals, they choose to live and work together. That's what a country is. It's not a piece of land. So think about it. A country is already an abstract idea because countries didn't always exist. They're man-made. So country is an abstract idea. And it's just a bunch of people that get together that have similar values. They believe relatively the same and they have the same relative morals and they choose to work and live together. And if you go to TikTok, TikTok's very different from the people or the citizens on Meta. And the citizens on Meta are very different from the citizens on YouTube. And the citizens on YouTube, they're very different from the people that reside in the country called Twitter or X. Similar values, beliefs, morals, ways of being. That's what a country is. The central purpose of a country is to collectively create something that is bigger than any one individual. That was traditionally the benefit of having a country, something that you could give yourself to give yourself over to, something bigger than yourself. And so the concept or the abstract idea of countries came into being to fill this need, the need by people to sort of collectively give themselves to something that's more important to them, something that gave them a reason to die for. And so let's imagine for a moment that Bitcoin is the new country. Now, Bitcoin was born on January 3rd, 2009. This makes Bitcoin the second youngest country in the world today. Now, let me repeat this. Bitcoin is born. Write these things down, guys. Where's your pen? Where's your paper? Or type it in your phone, type it on your computer. Bitcoin's born on January 3rd, 2009. That makes it the second youngest country in the world if we imagine, remember, imagine that Bitcoin is a country right now. So it's the second youngest country in the world. South Sudan is the youngest country in the world, having been formed July 9th, 2011. So 2 years after, a little bit more than 2 years after Bitcoin was born, South Sudan became a country. All right. So Bitcoin is the second youngest country in the world today. It is the 14th country in terms of population. So think of it this way. China is the most populated country in the world, right? Close to 1.5 billion citizens. India is second. They kind of start going back and forth now, but just a little bit shy of China's number. The United States is pretty big, guys. All right. And so you have China, India, the United States, Indonesia, Pakistan, Nigeria, Brazil. Bitcoin is the 14th. It's right under the Philippines. So with already north of 100 million adopters of Bitcoin, it ranks 14th in the world in terms of population. But get this, Bitcoin's adoption rate is 113% a year. It's virtually just a little shy of being double the internet back in the 1990s. And so with an adoption rate of that doubles every year, 113% a year, Bitcoin's going to climb up the ranks and ultimately become the most populated country in the world. That is if you buy into this notion that Bitcoin is a digital country today. So it's already 14 years old and is already bypassed every country in terms of citizenship except 13 others. It's 14th on the list. Interesting. Now, most countries, not all of them, but most countries have a mixture of different nationalities, don't they? Well, doesn't Bitcoin have that? Now, in the Bitcoin country, nationalities are nodes. So in the Bitcoin world, nationalities are sort of where your nodes from. So, there are more nodes that are not identified where they're from than the ones that are identified. So most Bitcoin nodes are hidden, right? So we can't really go by that number. And that number is close to 52%. So 52% of all nodes running Bitcoin, verifying transactions, validating the blockchain, these nodes are invisible to the world, right? 52%. So the 48% are broken up something like this. All right. 13% of all nodes that are visible are in the United States. 67% of all nodes visible are in Germany. 3% of all Bitcoin nodes visible are in France, 2% in Canada, 1.6% in Finland, 1.6% in UK, and 1.3% in Russia. So I gave you the top 8 right there. All right. Now, this makes Bitcoin multinational, does it not? It's a multinational country. These countries that I just listed here, they make up the multicultural nationalities in the Bitcoin network. It has, I hope you see what I'm doing here. It has all the traits of a country. It has a mixture of nationalities. It has a population number. It has a birth date, like South Sudan. Some people would argue that it has an inflation rate like every other country does. Now, many of you know that I have issues with the idea that Bitcoin is inflationary, but okay, let's go where most of you are. No, Oliver, Bitcoin does have inflation. Okay, so Bitcoin's inflation rate is currently 1.7%. 1.7% inflation rate. And this rate of inflation declines by 50% every 4 years until it's zero in the year 2140. Now, this makes Bitcoin the 5th country ranked by lowest inflation. So here is South Sudan again, the youngest country in the world today. Bitcoin's the 2nd youngest. Sudan's current inflation rate, this is actually a little dated since I put this together, guys. So it might be different now. But when I put this together, South Sudan's inflation rate was negative 2.5%. Benin's inflation rate was 1.6. Solomon Islands were 0.6. The bottom line is that on this list of countries that when I did this for my traders, see, I did this whole thing for my traders, I think a year ago. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is when I did this, Bitcoin had the 5th lowest inflation rate in the world. That is if you assume that the issuance rate is the same as an inflation rate. So do you see what I'm doing here? The very same things, the very same metrics, the very same things that we ascribe to countries, Bitcoin has. It's our country. Bitcoin is the 49th country in terms of global wealth. The 49th country in terms of global wealth. Bitcoin's market cap is just a little north of 400 billion, a proxy for total wealth of all Bitcoiners. So guys, when they say, okay, Bitcoin's total network is valued at 500 billion, and then when they say Bitcoin's total network is worth 1 trillion, you're talking about a proxy for the total wealth of all Bitcoiners. That's a very wealthy nation, no? I mean, the Bitcoin is owned by someone, yes? This makes us one of the wealthiest countries in the world. And I say we affectionately and confidently because I'm an owner of Bitcoin. Many of you are owners of Bitcoin. We belong to a wealthy country, not the wealthiest yet, but it's getting there. In 14 years, it has bypassed, there's only 200 countries in the world, more or less, and we're 49th. Based on this metric, Bitcoin is relatively upper middle income and comes in at 49 in the world. The US is about 261 times richer at the moment. So 260x, is it going to happen? You bet your damn Skippy it is. Where did I get that saying from? Can't remember. Anyway, you bet your damn Skippy. Okay. Doesn't most countries have a military? Yes. Not all, but most. And so does Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the 19th country out of 200. It's the 19th in military spending. You see, the miners serve as Bitcoin's military. Bitcoin miners were paid something like 20 billion by the network fees and block subsidy. 20 billion. Think about that. There are countries that don't spend 20 billion on their military. Many. It's the 19th in terms of what it pays its military to defend it. This places Bitcoin's military at number 19. The US spends about 52 times more of that per year. And that's about to go ballistic. But it's an interesting metric to be aware of, you know. Military spending per capita. This is a number that people like to point at. How much money does the US spend per person in the military? Well, Bitcoin spends about $144 per user. That's on par with Bulgaria right now. Now, the US, on the other hand, spends about $2,500 per capita. That's about 16 times more. All right, maybe 17 times more. But still, Bitcoin has a military spending per capita metric as well. Crazy, no? Isn't it don't we have this metric for countries like the electricity production? You know, everyone's always comparing Bitcoin's electricity consumption to that of other countries, right? So even that very comparison proves the fact that they are looking at Bitcoin as a country too. Bitcoin consumes about 110 terawatt hours per year. That's 0.55%. That's just about 0.5% of the entire global electricity production. It's nothing. It's 33rd, though, in electricity production. All right. Now, China uses 75 times more energy than Bitcoin. Bitcoin's way down the list here. Electricity usage, 147th in electricity usage per capita. So Bitcoin uses about 1,037 kilowatts per capita. This metric places it 147th in the world. Now, when you hear this energy FUD about Bitcoin, these numbers show that it's very, very tiny in terms of its usage. Iceland uses 49 times more energy per capita than Bitcoin does. The energy narrative that Bitcoin's going to boil the oceans and all of that bullshit is just what it is. Nonsense. Most countries do have a legal tender. And this is where Bitcoin is relatively small. If you look at the concept of legal tender from how many countries have made Bitcoin legal tender, and so far that's basically one. There used to be two. I think the Central African Republic renounced that idea, but this will come. Not that it's overly important, by the way, in my opinion. A lot of people really would love this aspect to be rushed for Bitcoin to become legal tender. I'm not in that camp. I don't care whether it's legal tender or not. It needs to remain as a growing, emergent store of value for the world. And it needs to do that for a while. It needs to get in the hands of the vast majority of people on Earth, and that will naturally have it morph into a medium of exchange. Then people will start to price things in Bitcoin, which is a unit of account. And it is at that stage that almost everyone will want it to be legal tender where they are to get your wealth, to get your business. But if no one has it, nobody, what's the benefit in making Bitcoin legal tender right now? If 100 million people have it out of 8 billion, it's nothing yet. But if 3 billion people have it, and those 3 billion people are the richest country in the world, that's coming. Every country, every analog country is going to roll the red carpet out to you. They're going to make Bitcoin legal tender. They want you bringing your wealth to them. These things happen in stages. And what the shitcoin complex wants to do is jump over all those steps and go straight to these things. They want to cheat the process, and you can't do it. I do expect a growing number of countries, however, a growing number of developing countries to adopt Bitcoin in the near future as legal tender. Every country has some form of law. Well, Bitcoin's law is code. Bitcoin full nodes, they enforce the Constitution. Cryptography replaces the courts. Proof of work effectuates this by replacing violence. There is no need for violence in the Bitcoin land, in the Bitcoin world, in the Bitcoin country. Most importantly, Bitcoin itself is property, and by extension, it enforces property rights. Now, this is very powerful because traditionally, the world has been denied property rights. Property rights have historically been for the privileged, and Bitcoin has come into existence to give every single human being this unalienable right, the right to property, your own property. Property that cannot be taken, property that cannot be debased, property that cannot be confiscated or stolen. And this is very, very powerful aspect of Bitcoin. Now, most countries have a government, one governing body, one governing person, or a collection of governing bodies. But Bitcoin has no central authority. Bitcoin as a country is ruled by its users. It's not democratic, nor is it pure anarchy, but it's something entirely new, a new form of governance, a fairer form of governance. Bitcoin protects the smallest, the minority, the individual. Now, everybody must opt in. The rules are fixed, and they're very difficult to change. So there's conservatism in its governance. There's consistency in its governance. Upgrades are slow, but they should be. What many unreliable countries have is a government that changes every single 2 years. Oh, who's the president now? Who's in power now? Who's in charge now? You can't plan. You can't invest. You can't do anything. You got to stay on pins and needles. You don't know whether you're going to stay or leave. Guys, I live down in Latin America. I know what this is all about. I got to think about, well, do I buy another property here? Because this president is against foreigners owning property here. That he might get elected. You understand? Like, it's crazy. I don't want things changing every 2 years, every 4 years. Bitcoin is hard to change. Bitcoin is slow to change. That is not a fault. That's a freaking feature. Look at how many times Ethereum's changed. Oh, wait a minute. It's proof of work. Oh, wait. No, it's a proof of stake now. Oh, wait a minute. It's world supercomputer. Wait a minute. It's ultrasound money now. Oh, wait a minute. It's a NFT platform. No, wait a minute. It's a DeFi protocol. Dude, what the? You got me bouncing around like a freaking ping pong ball here. How am I going to store my family's future in you? You can't even make up your own freaking mind what you want to be. But you know, the shitcoiners will turn that against Bitcoin. It's conservativeness, it's conservatism, it's sturdiness, it's an inability to move very easily. I don't want my vault moving. I don't want the vault that stores my whole life and my future and the futures of the generations to come. I don't want that being flimsy. I don't want that changing every 6 months. I don't want that flip-flopping. I don't want it doing jumping jacks on this day and doing backflips on another day, calling itself this month, and then 3 months later having a completely different name. I don't want it calling itself proof of work and now it's proof of freaking stake. What the heck is this? You got me dizzy. That's not Bitcoin. Guys, I could go on and on and on. Bitcoin has a monetary policy, guys. Only 21 million will ever exist. Its issuance gets cut in half every 4 years. You know exactly how much is coming out roughly every 10 minutes, all the way to the year 2140. Now, my God, wouldn't it be a miracle? Wouldn't it be amazing if we had a country that laid out its monetary policy transparently and as clearly as this? You can plan with this. You can plan for 100 years with this. No surprises, no changes. No, oh, I can't buy a property now because the laws have changed. Foreigners can't buy properties now. Oh, wait a minute. I can't go into this investment now because the tax laws have changed. The tax benefit's gone now. It's laid out for 100 plus years. For the next 117 years, we can plan and know that nothing's going to flip on us. Nothing's going to change. Nobody's going to break their promise. This is amazing. It's powerful. Every country has a national language. There might be citizens that speak a variety of different languages, but they have a national language. Bitcoin Core is written in C++. That is Bitcoin's national language. Bitcoin nodes, they communicate over the internet via TCP/IP. You know that? To speak in this world, to speak in the Bitcoin country, is to broadcast your transaction to the network. A public key is your voice box. A private key is your free will. The Bitcoin mempool is the forum, and nothing is unspeakable. Bitcoin's your country, guys. It's my country. It's your country. Bitcoin has colloquialisms just like every other country does. You know, we have these things like, you're a no-coiner, FUD, have fun staying poor. These memes are Bitcoin's colloquialisms. Every country has colloquialisms. In summary, guys, does Bitcoin have a national anthem? Most countries have a national anthem, right? Doesn't Bitcoin have a national anthem, guys? Pump It Up, maybe? The Bitcoin Maximalist remix? Yeah, that's it. Pump It Up. Bitcoin's national anthem. In summary, and I'm going to let you go. I know I keep saying that, but I promise this time. In summary, if Bitcoin were a country, it would have the 14th largest population. It would spend the 19th most on military. It would use the 32nd most energy, have the 4th lowest inflation rate in the world, be the 49th wealthiest country in the world. It would respect private property. It would have no tax, have no formal government, and have a great national anthem. And there you have it, guys. I want all of you to start thinking about Bitcoin in these terms. It shares the same metrics that every other country in the world has. I want you to recognize that everything in our lives that we hold dear, they're being sucked into this new realm of existence, a realm that was not so long ago discovered. This realm existed since the beginning of time, the digital realm, but we needed to get to a place to be capable of discovering that it already existed. The digital realm is not a creation, it's a discovery. And Bitcoin is the country we occupy in that world. And when you think of it this way, it takes on this deeper meaning. And it also, I believe, delivers a more acute vision for where this thing is going, where the world is going. All right, guys, that's my thesis, and I'm freaking sticking with it. That's what I believe. Bitcoin's that country. All right. I don't even know. I had very few. I'm going to die here. So I think this is right on time, guys. Guys, if I see, you have to ask your questions here, but guys, listen, I'm going to have to leave now. My phone's going to die, but I will do this. If you have any questions, I'm going to type my answers to you on this feed. Listen, once again, I truly appreciate all of those who participate in these things live for me. I do love you to death, for real, seriously. I don't take it for granted. Whether you're a hater, liker, whatever, it doesn't matter to me. The fact that you take some time out of your busy schedule, you spend the most valuable commodity you have, which is your time on me, listening to me blab about this, I honor that. So thank you very much. Those of you who are listening to this in a recorded fashion, I appreciate you too. I know that life intervenes sometimes and we can't always do things on live, but I do appreciate you being here, listening to this, even though you missed it live. My name is Oliver Velez, and I am your 13%er Bitcoiner. Be safe out there, and until next time. Boom!